Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the virtual summit that everyone needs right now. We are in the empathy in the workplace and on social media session. A lot of really good stuff to talk about, especially during these really strange, uncertain times. So I'm really excited to dive in and get going with the conversation. Before I do that, though, like I said, feel free to utilize the Q&A function or the chat function. This is also being recorded, so if you guys are interested in referencing it in the future, looking back on it, let me know. I can send it to you, and you can let me know by responding to an email that will go out later today with a survey. So if you guys could complete that super short anonymous survey, that'd be awesome, and then let me know if you want this recording or really any recording from the virtual summit so far. Okay, without further ado, I am going to stop talking and let our awesome panelists introduce themselves.
Shantel, you first.
Okay, well, I'm so excited to be here, Maggie. Thank you for inviting me. I am Shantel Kriss, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Imagine Media. We're a social media marketing company based in Atlanta, and we represent over 50 brands on social, and we tell their story through content creation, advertising, and strategic storytelling. And I wish I had one of your shirts, Shelton. I
know, me too.
Perfect for this.
I will have to ship you some. Okay, so I think this is awesome because we both have SH names, so that's why we're on this panel together. We're just going to talk about things that start with the SH, not bad words. Shelton Davis, I am CEO, founder, listener of Empathy Lab. I don't just make t-shirts. I'm a UX designer, strategist, whatever the UX people do. I do those things for clients, but I have a really big focus on empathy and how you actually listen to your users and really listen to your teammates so that you can listen to your users. Outside of doing UX work, if you don't know what that is, user experience design, websites, I'll leave it there. I run workshops, and I got to run a workshop with Shantel and her amazing crew on just like the basics of empathy. And this year I just started something called the Empathy Decathlon. It's 10 skills that help people get a better sense of what self-empathy is, so that we can be more empathetic to each other. So we all do a lot of things, and that's what I do.
Awesome. To kick things off, I think what I'd like to do is just hear from you guys personally, if you don't mind sharing. When did you realize, when did that aha moment happen? Or maybe it was over time where you were realizing how important it is to be an empathetic person, to show empathy, and to know that it's a skill that needs to be developed over time. So whoever wants to go first, go for it.
Geez, well, I can't reflect back on the exact moment, but specifically around COVID and this experience, we were probably a week into working remote, and we had a couple tough conversations with the team, and I think we got some reflections, and there were some tension points. Just it was such a big change for the team. I mean, we can certainly do the work from home, but it just, the feelings of being in a workspace with your spouse, or now having kids around, or client communication completely changed. Our process completely changed overnight. And it became very apparent very quickly that I needed to change my communication with the team into more one-on-one conversations, check-in points, and really be a listening ear more frequently than I've done in the past. So I think my approach to empathetic listening and my approach to having empathy with the team had to change because of this. So that's at least one example in the current climate that comes to mind of how things needed to shift quickly.
Yes, I feel you on this. I've worked remotely for 5-6 years now. So that comes okay with me. But now that you put everyone else remote, then like you said, Shantel, the communication is completely different. Some people are now in a meeting with a dog or with kids, or they've had family tragedies. So it's, to your point of that one-on-one, I think that's even more important now than it has been before, because we need to be able to, one-on-one, you can create a safe space. It's two people, right? And so that you can actually have that, like, hey, I didn't sleep well, kids are up late. Hey, I'm worried about, I don't have any masks or bandanas or anything like that. So the one-on-one has been really crucial, even remotely, recently.
I think one other thing that comes to mind just on that point is I realized also probably at that, like maybe it was the 2-week mark, that everyone was processing these feelings at different times. So I may have 2 weeks ago, when I started to put a work from home agenda and or process in place, I felt like scared, overwhelmed, all of the feelings. And it became really real in that moment. Whereas it may have just hit another teammate a week ago. And so having empathy for this timeline and how it's been different for everyone, and it's sinking in at different time frames, has been a really big learning for me right now too.
Yeah. Just curious, hopefully everybody is kind of on the same page now, and I'm assuming that everyone is, because this is affecting every single person in the world. It is, everybody is in essence in the same boat from kind of a larger scale. So what do you guys suggest in terms of like actual tactile, tips or takeaways for folks when maybe they're a business leader, or maybe they manage a team, or maybe they need to remind their manager or people above them? What do you say to those people who are like, I just want to remind people within my team or remind people within my community that this is a really weird time? So what is the actual like messaging? How does that sound? Or what do you say?
Like, I can say one real quick thing. I think that there's intentionality. Like, we have to be very intentional at everyone recognizing that we're in a storm. Everyone's storm is different, and we're all going to make do the best we can. I think like setting the tone early and often that we are all in this. We can't, like, I understand that empathy is walking in another person's shoes, but we can't even imagine what each other's going through. So it's almost like we have to like have that safety, like check in first. It's like, we're all going through something. Let's be patient.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think also, and I'm maybe thinking from the social media lens, there have been some brands that I've been super impressed with this level of vulnerability and authenticness. And they just, they ask their followers, hey, we don't really know what to post right now. Like, are you interested in still hearing about our launch next week? Or does that not feel right? Like, does that feel insensitive to you? Like, please let us know. And I think asking thoughtful questions and actually hearing what people's suggestions are is a way to tap into that empathy in a different way, as opposed to just assuming, this is what we should be saying, or this is what the kind of type of content we should be putting out. Asking and actually taking that feedback to heart.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there is a
That's
question
great.
I want to ask that someone left in the chat. And I know that you guys are both big fans of this, and it's relatable to both of your experiences and what you do. So the listening part, right? That's so important. So why don't you tell people how important that is? It's being able to be empathetic yourself, but the listening piece is so important too. So why don't you guys speak on that too, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I don't know what the tactical, outside of just doing it, I don't know. Shelton, maybe you have some thoughts around that.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this listening piece for a long time now. And we as humans can only listen when we have enough energy to do so. And if we're not in a good place to hear people, it's almost like we need to remove ourselves from that situation, so that we don't give them the response that's completely like wrong. So like, I think even before listening, we need to be like intentional with ourselves about how are we feeling right now? Do I have the energy to actually listen to someone else's problems? because empathy and compassion exhaustion is real. It's happening, and it's putting everyone in really awkward positions. So I think being very safe with yourself before you listen is a huge thing. And this is having really to go with like social media or like brand message. I think even them, and Shantel, correct me if I'm wrong, like if a team is not ready to take in all those answers from, hey, what should we be posting? Maybe something else should be done, because like we're all on our individual thin icebergs, whatever you want to call it. And if we can't listen to ourselves and be good with ourselves so that we can help others, it's kind of the analogy. If there's not enough in my glass to pour into others, then we should probably not be pouring our own energy into someone else. Yeah.
That's important. I think kind of doing those self check-ins is so crucial right now. And the session on mindfulness and meditation yesterday was amazing, because it was just a really good reminder of like, before we can give anything, we have to make sure we know where we're at emotionally and mentally. I think that's a really good point. So here's a question from Molly. How can we communicate and work empathetically with a client or even an employer or colleague who is pressuring us to return to normal close contact work before we feel safe?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a big challenge right now as we're all trying to navigate what returning to work looks like. I mean, my lens would be just having an open conversation on how you are feeling is the first step. I don't know if it needs to be this like calculated process, but just having an open conversation and opening up the doors to chatting through that and seeing where that lands. That's tough. And I think everyone, I mean, really, every business is trying to survive. Every business is trying to do the best that they can. And the reality of it is we're all trying our hardest and we're all just trying to figure it out. I don't think there's anyone right now, business owner, colleague, client, that can truly say like, yeah, I'm confident right now in everything we're doing and every decision we're making. And I'm hopeful that that particular person you're talking about, Molly, is open to hearing ideas around what that looks like for you.
Yeah, the conversation is probably key. A couple of the organizations that I work with are pretty big, and they have like, these are our working models. Here's how we are working from home. Here's how we are returning back to work. And I think certain business units have their own slice of it and how they want to do it. And maybe as a business owner, and maybe I should think about this for myself. I hadn't really thought this far about it. I need to have like, here's my working agenda of how Empathy Lab is re-entering the world, because I want to do face-to-face workshops. I'm not going to do that for the safety of myself and for everyone else. I have to have a safe environment. So maybe there's something that, have that conversation with one client, but maybe there's something that needs to be put out that this is what I'm going to do as a business to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
I think also, I mean, I would value that input. I'm working on that plan right now of what that looks like.
Oh yeah.
Cleaning, how far apart are we all sitting? And if someone on the team or a client or colleague came to me and said, hey, I have ideas on how to make everyone feel safer, or me specifically, I would welcome that communication.
For sure. And I feel like this is kind of a nice segue, because I'm so curious what you guys are thinking in terms of cultivating a more empathetic remote workplace. Sometimes it feels easier to do things when you're in person. So the challenge is, how do you do that virtually, remotely? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing that's been, I think, really helpful for us is we've had a morning and afternoon huddle at 9:03 and 4:50. It's quick 5 to 10 minute standing Zoom. And we do rapid round of priority of the day. Or we start the morning with what we're grateful for and our priority. And then we end the day with a win and a shout out to the team and any lingering challenges. And there are two pieces on both of those I love. I love starting the day with gratefulness. And And so that we can all hear what that person is grateful for, and that maybe an opportunity for us as a leadership team to pour into that one specific thing for that person. And then the ending day of the challenge, I think it's been a really good pulse check for us, or just opportunity for us to listen and be empathetic of, okay, the person is challenged because their nanny had to leave today and they aren't done with their work. And at least virtually, that's really helped us stay up to date and up to speed on how everyone's feeling and doing for the day, and then be able to live coach and live step in and help and be supportive.
Awesome.
I love the end of the day check-in at 9, what would you say, 4:50? Mm-hmm. And the 9:03, I like the 03, like, mm-hmm. Very specific. Similar to the gratitude thing that you were talking about, there's an app called Daily Aloha, and it gives you a question every day. And so one thing that I've been doing with most of my regular clients is, with the team lead, we ask a question to start off the stand-up or the morning meeting. And it could be anything like, do you like mints, or what's your favorite color? Like something that is not gripped in reality right now, that's not a hairy subject that we can all ease ourselves into. And those like questions really help set an open, friendly, and kind of like shedding off, whatever was before or coming after tone. It's been helpful, and amazingly enough, they've kind of leaned into it even more recently. So check it out, Daily Aloha.
That's awesome.
Really insightful questions.
It sounds like it kind of reinforces the idea of creating a culture of context sharing, right? Where it's creating this environment where you don't have to, you're not expected actually to talk about work, or we probably shouldn't be talking about coronavirus again and again and again. So I love that, and that it just kind of takes your mind elsewhere, but it still enables this opportunity for people to share whatever it is that they want to share. And if it's something like, do you like mint, or do you like the rain? It does kind of take a little bit of that pressure off of someone who might not regularly share something in some sort of open environment.
You got it.
I love that. I read an article that without this office time together, or if you're in a co-working space and seeing other people, you miss out on the water cooler talk, and how teams still crave this interaction that's not work related. And so there's been a lot of great fun integrations of like, we'll do a happy hour and we'll just play a game like categories or something, or we'll do a master class. We learn about mixology, just trying to find ways to continue to bond the team virtually in a different way. But I'm gonna have to look up that app. Thanks, Shelton.
Yeah, good rec. Moving forward, how does this change how you approach empathy in your business? And, what are you adding to your playbook, so to speak, your empathy playbook? And also, I guess that question could be changed or altered for social. How does this change your playbook for brands in times of crisis? Because unfortunately, I'm sure there's going to be times of crisis for brands, whether it's something like this or something very specific to their brand. But, what are we, I guess the question is, what are we learning right now, and how do we take that forward?
I don't know if I have an answer for that yet, but one thing at least I'm feeling is, Shelton, I think you mentioned something fatigue, like empathy. Fatigue. And we have 50 clients that I'm communicating with almost daily. I mean, the team's communicating with them almost daily. So we're hearing a lot of different challenges and struggles from a lot of different people, and trying to listen and show up and support. And then also the team. And I'm not quite sure I have a good outlet to release hearing all of that. So I think in my playbook in the future, it would include something that feels like a healthy release of that. And I don't know what the answer is.
Yes, I think that we're all taking I don't know. I'm not a therapist. I don't have a license to do like therapy with people, but I feel like we're all becoming like this bartender therapist. And we're taking on a lot of other people's troubles right now. And to your point, it's like the overload, the exhaustion is real, and you're feeling it. The one thing that I think that I did this last week. I did an empathy morning last week, and it was originally going to be on self-awareness, and then with life issues, I changed it to like living, or like what was it called, weathering the storm. And it was really just an open session for people. Like I shared what I was going through, and then other people just like, they opened up. It was safe, it was vulnerable, and I needed it immensely, and I realized that other people needed it. And I think one thing that personally I'm going to do moving forward is I want to have more open dialogue, not with just like friends, but with complete strangers, about like, what are you going through, so that we can like kind of support each other somehow. But moving forward, going back to your question, Maggie, most of the workshop stuff that I wanted to do was in person, and I need to figure out how to make the same empathetic connections that you do physically with individuals in a remote environment, so that people feel safe. So that's something I'm trying to figure out right now, because you can't see my pupils dilate. You can't see if I'm like jittering my feet around, or you can't see my anxiety.
Yeah.
So we lose a lot of connection this way. So I'm trying to figure out personally how to recreate that somehow, while giving people the feeling of safety.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, it's a question that obviously no one really has an answer to, because we're still kind of in the midst of everything. I think for me, I'm like we had mentioned before, I'm trying to do a better job of focusing on where I'm at emotionally and mentally, and where my energy is naturally headed towards, and utilizing it in whatever that direction is. So that's one thing that I don't think honestly that I was doing before. I think I was just very much a structured, like, okay, I used to be the type of person that would block off my work calendar. Like 9 to 10 is focus time on XYZ, and 10 to 11 is like LinkedIn and content. I mean, I used to be that person, and that's just not, it hasn't been working for me. And so I changed, and I just try to focus on, what am I feeling, and what am I like stoked to do today? And I'm going to do that, whatever that is. And I think the second thing is, and we talked about this in another session, but I've just kind of started to get in the habit of, if I think of somebody, I'm going to reach out to them. Even if it's a professional connection, then maybe it's just like a quick message on LinkedIn. If it's a friend, it's a quick text. And it's also setting the expectation of, I'm just thinking about you, but no need to respond like this, because I don't want to put that expectation or that burden on someone to feel like they have to respond to me. And I feel like that's helpful for both me and potentially them. So those are a couple of things that I'm trying to do, and I hope to carry forward. I have no idea. I hope this isn't a mountaintop high type thing. I want to be able to carry these new habits and behaviors forward. I have a question/comment that I'm going to read to you guys, if that's okay. Our organization was work from home prior to COVID. My challenge as a leader in my agency is finding empathy for situations that my team are finding themselves in the wake of COVID that we had already faced as parents, spouses, colleagues, etc. For example, as a mom of 3 who is juggling homeschool and working when the team struggles, I struggle with empathy where I used to connect with these team members. It's causing some frustration. Any suggestions? Does that make sense?
I think so. Let me see if I can recap that. Before COVID, in the wake of COVID, there was an empathetic connection between this person and the mother of 3 of what she was going through. But now, after that, it's hard to have that empathetic connection.
I think so. I think what she's trying, and correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, yeah, she said yes. So yes.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
You everyone's struggling right now to make that empathetic connection. So I don't think there's nothing wrong that you're doing. But the question is like, how do you refine that? I'm not sure if you're doing like one-on-ones with individuals, back to Chantel's conversation, but maybe that will help bring things closer. And I don't know, coming from a place of kindness and forgiveness, there's a book that my wife just read, and there's 4 things in it that have resonated really well with me recently. It's repeating this: thank you, I forgive you, I'm sorry, and I love you. Like those things, for some reason for me, have helped out. But like maybe have a deeper conversation with that person to see if you can find something. And if that doesn't work, maybe find a colleague that can help you in that position.
What's the name of that book? I'll put that in.
I will get it for you. I don't know. We are like churning through books in this house right now. So yeah.
There was a quote that it was something along the lines of, everyone right now is feeling like this is the worst thing to some degree that's ever happened to them. Like this is their worst moment. And it was helpful for me to read because I may feel like this is the worst because XYZ in my company is happening and I have to make sure that I can support the team and pay their paychecks. But to them, it's the worst because they, their spouse got laid off. I mean, everyone feels like the level of, degree in which they feel like this is such a big issue, everyone feels like that. And I guess that helped me process that. I couldn't compare my feelings to someone else on the team because they equally felt like it was the biggest challenge that they were overcoming, even if the challenges were different because they had kids or didn't, or that quote at least helped me maybe take a step back and realize my problems are my own and theirs are their own. And the only thing I can do to help support them is to hear them and acknowledge it and not try to defend one way or another.
Yeah, for sure. I resonate with that fully because I used to struggle, and I talk about this all the time to my therapist, but about how I was saying, when someone would ask me how I'm doing during coronavirus days, I'd be like, I'm fine, but I feel like I shouldn't complain about anything because there are people who have it, a lot more worse than me, and they're struggling with a lot more things. And my therapist made a good point in that, my struggles are my struggles, and I am allowed to have those struggles. And she used this funny math equation. She was like, 2 minus 1 equals 1. But then you could also have all of these other crazy things in this equation and the answer still be 1, meaning, everybody's struggles are their struggles, I guess. I don't know if I explained that very well, but yeah, it's kind of just to kind of pinpoint the fact that you're allowed to struggle with whatever it is you're struggling with. And like you said, it's about acknowledging that with other people if you're opening up with other people, and not trying to compare struggles against other struggles. So yeah.
I think also I've had to just take some breaks and breathe. And I think some of my first reaction would be to maybe show up in this way and looking like I wouldn't be proud of the way that I showed up in that space. And so just giving myself a little bit of grace and space and okay, I'm processing it this way. That's probably not the way that they intended for me to process it, but they're just doing as much as they can, as quickly as they can, and in the best way that they know how.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just taking breaks. I think it's also very easy to be all consumed with work when you're home and juggling a lot, and allowing yourself to take a break and a walk has at least helped me try to show up more empathetically in moments where I've felt extremely frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Can I highlight a couple things that you all said that I think are huge? We can't compare what we're going through to others. It's like once we start doing that, it becomes a weird game, and then it's like my hardship is worse than your hardship, and we can't even imagine. And there's a, I'm trying to remember this technique of, so I not Teresa Ward is someone that I work with all the time, and she told me something that I thought was really cool. There was this, imagine a situation where you have a homeless gentleman person in front of you, and your initial reaction is like, I don't have any money, right? But maybe this is like a genius Nobel Prize winning astrophysicist that knows the cure of cancer. Like treat other people with so much almost over respect, so that it kind of lifts you to a different, like, non-comparison, more of a I appreciate you state of being. So it's like, how do you kind of like make them bigger and grander than they are in that moment where you're struggling with that comparison piece?
That's good. I want to remind everybody that they're welcome to throw in any comments or questions for us. While people are thinking of things, I'm curious, just to kind of turn a little bit, what are, when do you think is the right time for brands to be talking about their brands again? Like, have you guys thought about that? And I'm curious to know from kind of your side, like managing these social accounts and helping your brands in that way, but then also on a consumer side, like, what do you guys think is the appropriate time? What does that look like?
I don't think there's a one size fits all answer, probably, if I'm being honest. It largely depends on your company, your brand voice, your followers. We represent a local account, Gusto. They're a great restaurant here in town, and I mean, they've completely pivoted and changed everything they're doing, and they're talking a lot on social media and finding ways to add value. They're not just like, buy our product, buy our food, they're finding innovative ways to engage. So I think it would be leaning back, asking those questions, and leaning on the followers. And then doing what feels authentic to you. I mean, if it doesn't feel right to talk about anything right now, that's okay. I maybe wouldn't suggest going completely silent for 2 months, but I think there are ways to find a very authentic way to do that.
Cool.
I think that's great advice. I'm going to take that myself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'm in a interesting position where I feel like I need to even be louder now, as like, hey, everyone, everyone's dealing with something. How can I help? And at the same time, I realize that my energy is really low. And so I'm kind of in the past week or so, like, how do I build my energy up so that I can be a good brand person for empathy, or just an empathetic listener to people that are having issues. So I personally know that I'm not ready to take on any big initiatives from a brand perspective, but I do feel like I've been asked by the audience, which is to your point, Shantel's like, listen to them. I've been asked to like be more present, and I'm getting there. Just takes energy and time.
Yeah. Here's a pretty interesting, good question. Is there such a thing as showing too much empathy? And if so, how do you ensure a healthy balance?
I have not read anything about too much empathy. It's like being too kind to people. I think it becomes too weird if you're eating their dinner for them, that you're actually like really too close. They'll tell you when to get away, but I think being too empathetic really comes down to the empathy exhaustion thing that I talked about earlier. There's only so much you can take in. Our brains are not like infinitely powerful computers. They can only take so much per day. And so how do you make sure that you're not exhausting yourself in such a way that like your family, your friends are getting the rough edges of you? So I think that's where too much empathy comes into play. It's really less on the person. They'll tell you. It's more on yourself and how you can actually bring yourself to those around you that you love and care about?
I think a big piece of it is making sure it's genuine too. And just on my own reflection, I'm trying to make these more one-on-one calls, and I had it, Maggie, like you mentioned, on my agenda from 10 to 10:30. And that day I just was like, I can't do it. And I can't show up being empathetic if I call right now. And so I just skipped that time block because I felt like I wouldn't have been genuine, and I had too many other thoughts going on. So that's just one thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Shantel, did you tell them that, like, I don't have it right now?
Well, so it wasn't on their calendars. It was going to just be a pop-up call.
I gotcha.
But I would like to, I don't know. I don't know if I would have canceled something.
Okay.
I probably should if I'm feeling that way.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've it's hard as a leader to show vulnerability, but I think that I've heard it and I've seen it where leaders with small teams, big teams, doesn't matter. They're like, I can't do this right now. I need to go stare at the corner of a wall with a bourbon for 20 minutes, and then I'll come back to you, but I need to go take care of myself first. I think that's a hard thing, a hard pivot for a lot of what we see as A-type leadership that has been kind of dominating the scene for ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Just different thought.
Oh, I was just going to echo that and just say that it's difficult to show vulnerability for anybody, whether or not you're a business leader or you're trying to be vulnerable with your partner or your family members or your friends, but it's always well received. You know, it's when you were purely honest with somebody, when was it just like the worst conversation in the world? You know, there was probably a lot of good stuff that came from that. So yeah, just to echo that, I'm in full agreement. Just be vulnerable, and it's okay to say, I just don't have the headspace for that right now, and I want to, but not right now. Let's reschedule, kind of a thing. Because that's happened to me, as like my boss has done that to me, and I'm like, yes, do you? I appreciate you being so open with me. Like, it just strengthens the relationship that I have with her. So anyway.
This is random. I don't know if there's a question or just a conversation that could come from this, but something can I just share a thought that I've had around it right now? It's been a really interesting experience to, I feel like, even get closer with some friends and family over certain things. And one example that comes to mind is I've had panic attacks before, and I know what anxiety feels like. And I have some friends and close friends that are now experiencing something like that. And it's been an interesting opening to a conversation that we never had before, of like, now I understand what that felt like, and I'm now dealing with that too, and what are some techniques. And I guess I just, other than feeling closer in a lot of different ways, because I think this experience has, I don't know if, I'll stop talking. It's just something that's going in my head, and I don't really know how to articulate that thought.
I think that's amazing self-awareness, that you're realizing that the things that you hadn't shared, then you have friends that are going through something that is extremely, like, they've gone through the same battle as you. You're like, whoa, hey, this, we can identify. That's huge.
Yeah.
Panic
attacks. I'm just saying, like, I think that this is allowing for more open, honest conversations that maybe weren't otherwise had on a variety of different topics.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I told you, both you ladies, that last Thursday my mom passed away, and so the conversations that I've had with other individuals about parents passing, I've never had, like, you don't have that conversation unless it happens, but it's amazing what the depth and the emotional, like, complexity that is kind of like made aware between people that you're like, wait, how we can say the same things. We're finishing each other's sentences. We're crying at the same time. It's magical. Which then leads me to your point earlier, Maggie, is like, how do we be more vulnerable with some of these like more intimate pieces of our lives without, how can we be there?
Yeah.
More rhetorical question.
Yeah. Man, it is, the time has like completely escaped me. It is 3:27 or 3:28. And again, want to remind folks to throw in any comments or questions they may have. Otherwise, what I'm going to do, if it's okay with you guys, oh wait, we do have something. Okay, just a condolences to you, Shelton, about your mother.
Thank you.
If you guys don't mind, can I throw your LinkedIn URLs in the chat, and folks
Sure.
can connect with you that way? So I'll do that here in just a second. And while I'm doing that, do you guys have any last minute kind of top of mind things that you'd like to share with the group?
I have one thing.
Go for it.
I bought something earlier this year to remind myself to take care of myself. I went on eBay and I picked up an oxygen mask from an airplane. And so it's like pens and other stuff. It's on my desk to remind myself. It's like, if I'm not feeding myself, like sleeping, being emotionally like, there, I cannot give it to anyone else. I can't help the next person with my kids who are in the other room with their mask. Right. So I've got to take care of myself before I can help others.
I love that reminder.
And it's not selfish. It's not selfish. It's
right.
it's really for the greater good for those that are around you. So if you would put a little post-it on your computer or something, just like self-care, take care.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, no other questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me and hopping on this so quickly. It's just really cool to see everybody come together and volunteer their time this way. So I'm super grateful. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened and engaged with us. The survey will go out later today, and hopefully you guys will tune into the next session, the last session, which is on shared trauma and new trauma. I think that's going to be really impactful too. So thank you all, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.